particularly at Ottery, we were looking particularly at maths. We found we had very good programs for improving writing, but we weren't actually looking at how to transform from the early years maths, the year 1-2 maths, into the particularly we wanted to be able to look at those subjects and see if they were causing any concerns. So again, as a Key Stage 1 leader, deputy head, this graph comes onto my homepage automatically at the end of each assessment period, and I can access the data. The other thing which we wanted to talk about with our at Governors was progress. So just a very quick example of progress. This is progress against target. So the rows on here represent the targets which were set by FFT. The columns represent the current teacher assessment. So very quickly, this middle row are the children who should be working at national. So we've got that typical bell curve, but we've got 6 children here who should be working at national and are actually working towards. So as inside the school, we then want to bring up the names and start talking about what we can do in particular for these pupils. So all of these grids, that mark has just gone in once, and those grids then pull that data out. We wanted them also to have those discussions between phase leaders and classroom teachers, and rather than use these grids, we bring those into something called tracking grids, which sit in Sims. So if I just bring up a tracking grid, I'll bring up this one. So tracking grids perform the same function as the little smaller grids with numbers, but they've got the children's data, the children's names there straight away. So here we're looking at progress from early years to where they currently are in year 1. We've got the children who were emerging, expected, and if I scroll down, exceeding. And then this is where they are according to their current teacher judgment. So again, in terms of where they've progressed, I'm going to look at these children who were all exceeding at early years, and I'd expect them to be pretty much at least national, hopefully working above national. But I can see actually that for maths in particular, we've got children who we need to put some intervention in place to help them move forward. So immediately we can have a discussion now with the class teacher, what are we doing for these particular pupils? You see, as I hover over them, they go blue. That means that's a hyperlink. So if we want to look at a child's individual record, we can go one click, and now we're looking at a particular child to see what's going on. So again, from a strategic point of view, it made it so much easier for our middle leaders to begin to identify key pupils and then to put in some interventions in place which would help us improve these children's learning outcomes. And we can have any number of these. So we've also got one which deals with their Fisher Family Trust targets against where they are currently. And again, we can quickly identify the children who we need to put some intervention in. We also use this for particular people like Arsenko, or a person who's looking particularly at the pupil premium funding. Because, again, it's in Sims, we can put a filter on here. And let's just put in on our pupil premium children, apply that, reformat that grid. So now we can see that our pupil premium children are actually all working towards their target, the grey box is their target, or actually working above. So hopefully the interventions which we've put in for those pupil premium children seems to be bearing fruit as far as maths is concerned. We can also quickly then switch over to reading and do the same chart just for reading and spot where those pupil premium children are. So very quick, very easy, saved a lot of collating of data together which was going on elsewhere in the system. We also wanted reports to governors which were easy to generate. We didn't want middle leaders using a lot of time crunching things in Excel, crunching things and then putting them to reports. So again, I spoke about snipping those little charts from the homepage, which are fine. We also use Discover. Again, part of your sim system. And all we wanted to do is have some termly charts which would show us for a particular year group, number of children working at each grade. So there we go, there's our, blue is our above, pink is our national, green is our below. So very quickly, just an overview. I can then, when I'm preparing my report for governors, or they're preparing the report, which I will then look at as a governor, copy that, go into my Word document, and paste. So that's very quick and easy to get that data out. And that's enough. We now know that our middle leaders know where the strengths and weaknesses are, where that's going through. Because this is in Discover, you can also do a lot of wonderful things. So if we wanted to see all of those who are already working above in reading, writing and maths, we can drag off, make a Venn diagram very quickly of children who are working above in reading, writing and maths. And we can identify those children for internal use by clicking and actually bringing up the names of the children. But if we wanted to then just again pop that into a report for governors, quick copy into my governor's report and paste, and we've got that data out. So again, that one little bit of data being put in by that teacher has now been surfaced, if that's the right verb to use, several times in various analysis grids, and we want to report home to parents. So if I just close Discover and just go into what's called individual reports and go to my Year 1 reports. Just going to bring up some students. This is what they would do after each data collection, and because it's so simple, we can run these reports maybe a little bit more often than we used to do. Preview this. And basically, we design what we want it to look like in Word, and then it basically does a mail merge, brings the data through, and we've got child's name, registration group, their target, their current grade. We could put a little bit of explanation that W means working towards, and if the child is working towards, that's absolutely fine. We also know about their attendance, because that's part of SIMS, that's data in there. We could also do behaviour and achievement if we recorded that in SIMS, and that's all we need to do as a sort of half-termly or termly report. We can then add comments in to the report in the summer term, and again, teachers would put their comments into SIMS in the same interface as they put their marks, type it in, get spell checked, and then gets mail merged into a report. Great thing about this is if we're still doing paper reports to parents, we can print it out. But with some of the other technologies which you might already use, do any of you use school comms? If you use school comms, you can send reports as PDF files to parents through it. If you buy things from Capita, they've got In Touch, which is their emailing system. They've also got Parent app, which sits on a mobile phone. So we can send it out to parents via an app. So instead of having a bit of paper printed out 4 or 5 times a year, it goes to their app as a PDF file, and they can just have a look at it and then get back in touch with us. Yeah?
So if you're going to send this out to parents via a PDF, is this something that the teachers do, or is this something that you would expect your admin staff to do?
I think it would fit in admin. For me to do this now, if I wanted to do this for the whole year group, where's my year groups gone? There we go. Year 1, select all, apply, and then I just select all again and go. And if I've got the product, it will have a send button here, and I can send it in one go. So it is very streamlined in what it actually does.
And is the SIMS Discover part of the package?
SIMS Discover is part of your standard SIMS license, so you should have it. If you haven't, log a call. Actually, go down at the end of this room, we've got what we call our Genius bar. Whoops, it says coming off the stool. And log a call with them and say, we haven't got Discover, can we have it set up? And it will be done over the next couple of days for you. Okay. So that's what we're doing in terms of tracking assessment, putting it all into SIMS, making it much easier to use. And although we've chosen AWN, you can actually choose anything you like. So I've been working with different schools, different trusts to either recreate what the previous system was using. So School Pupil Tracker, for example, we've taken School Pupil Tracker at Tedburn, but we've actually simplified going forward. It's going to be not have all the hashtags and all the other things which are going in. Other schools are using the key stage grades, GDS, EXP, WT, WB, etc. So you can actually customize and ask Sims to do whatever you want it to do, as long as it makes sense for you as a school. Again, if you want more information, talk to me in between these. Gary will be over there at some stage, or talk to the people on the Genius Bar. So the other thing we wanted to do at Ottery St Mary, we wanted to track interventions. We know that we spend a lot of money supporting children over and above what they do in the classroom. And we wanted to begin to categorise that. So we've just started using what's called interventions in Sims. Again, part of your system. It's nothing you'd have to buy, it's sitting there already. So I'm just going to show you, for example, well, you can read these. We've got a breakfast club, which is aimed at those children who couldn't get to school on time, so we get them in for breakfast, and they can come in a little bit earlier, and therefore they're arriving on time. We've got a Cooperate and Collaborate, which is a social group, helping those children who are struggling a little bit on the edge, need a little bit of tender loving care at lunchtime, maybe some peer support. We've got some other improving attendance ones, and we've got some specific things working on particular subjects. So where we've got a little small group going out to do some phonics work, because we've identified maybe before they did their year one phonics tests that they were a little bit weak. So we've got pupils going into groups. When we did this at Ottery, we first did it as a retrospective on a term. We took a half term, which was the January half term, had a look at it, collated in all the things which were going on and put it into Sims. And it was really quite incredible to see. Yes, we knew we were doing a lot of things to support children over and above what they do in the classroom. But when you actually brought it into Sims and saw it, it made such a big impact. I'll just show you what one of these would look like. So for each intervention, we have an overall theme, and then we have a specific termly one, because we want to evaluate each term how effective it is. And if we do it for 2 terms and it has no effect, well, it's not the right thing to be doing, so we can put our funds into doing something maybe a little bit more worthwhile. So for each child, we would set up a starting point and an end point, and then we'd put in some costs. So we would say that to run any intervention is going to cost a certain amount. We have a classroom open, we have lighting, we have heating. There's a standard cost which is undergoing like anything we do. We're going to have our staff costs. So if this is a half-hour session with a TA, it might cost us £12.50 to have that TA doing that for that session. It might be we've got some other caustic sections, some fruit or something for them to eat. It might be we've bought some board games so they can come in and do some fun things. So let's say each section is costing us £6 to run. That then gives us an overall total for our intervention, which I'll save. We then run these interventions through, recording what's happened, and at the end of it, we can come in and run some reports. So just very, very briefly, because I'm coming towards the end of the little slot, these are the interventions we're running this particular half term. So we can see what the interventions are, number of interventions that actually means, and the number of children who are actually then being targeted by those interventions. We can then expand each of those and see how each one broke down, and we've got the cost per intervention. So we know that if we've had £800 to spend on these group of children, we've spent £790 of it now on providing these interventions. The other reports, which are absolutely fantastic, break it down for an individual child. So if I just go into student intervention report, I'm just going to pick up a child who I know is involved in several interventions, which is Tamois. I'm just going to generate an individual interventions report for him. So what this does is it says, okay, so far this year for Tamwa, he's been involved in 2 interventions. This was the first one, and this was the second one. Not a very good one to choose because he actually didn't attend any of these. But the cost of the overall intervention, because it was put down for 20 children, it's actually cost us £19.29 in this individual's case to fund this intervention. The ones which we've got from Ottery St Mary's data are much more data rich because we actually have got some really interesting charts where we've got some children who've got 8 interventions going on throughout the year so far, and we can see the full amount of cost that that's actually cost us based on the hourly rate, the extra resources we've bought to do that. And as a governor, it's been really interesting. I've probably got more involved than I should do because with my Scomis hat on, I've been helping them get it ready. But having that presented at one of our learning and development committee meetings has been absolutely incredible to see. Yes, now we actually know for the first time exactly how all that money is being used and where it's being spent and where it's being targeted. And we've actually got a really good idea of the effectiveness of it because each time something's run, we've actually said, yes, this has achieved what we wanted it to do. That child's attendance has gone up. That child's literacy has gone from being way working below to where they are at national. So again, interventions sits in your SIMS. It's there at the moment. You could go back and have a look at it in your school. And it's a wonderful tool. And it also can cross-match. So if you remember I showed you Discover earlier. I just go into my Discover again. Under here, I can see children who are in interventions. So those are the current interventions we've got running this curriculum year in school. Those are the number of children involved in each one. So if I looked at my improving attendance chart, I could then cross-match that with a graph on attendance, drop my improving attendance cohorts in and see where have they got to. And in the autumn term, we didn't get them above 90%, but when we run that again at the end of the spring term, hopefully they will have moved because our intervention will have proved worthwhile. So I'm going to stop talking. Any questions? Because I had a 5-minute sign up about 3 minutes ago. Any questions?
Is there some adaptability? So when you say actually we present it like this, and it's got the list of people names, it's got the columns. I mean, at the moment we've got a set of the big thing that we've changed in our data system. It's very visual. People can see where children were and where they were. And basically, so now we've got a system where you've got you kind of like your low, middle, and your high and previous data, and then you've got them where they are.
Yes.
Can you adapt how that looks to see how maybe you can do it? Because we've got a system set up, and I know new systems change things, so that we're not saying, okay, this is our ideal way of presenting it.
Yes, the tracking grids. The tracking grids really much do that. They will take 2 sets of grades or 2 sets of ideas and then cross-match them. So you could have a grade where you had low, medium and high previous attainment matched against where they are at the moment, and then colour-coded, so red, amber, green going across the screen. And basically what we tend to do is come out, have a chat. So example, working with Andy at Tedburn and the rest of the link, I spent, it was a morning, wasn't it, talking with all the head teachers about how we wanted it to begin to look like. And then I've worked with Andy on getting it set up at Tedburn before we look at rolling it out across the other schools. So if you want more information, speak to one of us. We can come out and talk to you as an individual school. If you're part of a trust or a federation, come out and speak to you as part to the federation as a whole. Spend a lot more time than we've had time for this morning. Okay. Well, thank you for attending. Again, apologies from Mark. He would have liked to have been here to talk it through. But any questions, just come back, talk to us throughout the day. Okay, thank you.